So first of all, I'd like to thank you all for taking some time out of your evenings to meet with us at Life Without Barriers. It's really great to see so many of you in the chat room already. My name is Michael. I'm the Care Practice Manager at Life Without Barriers. So I manage the team of people who take people who are interested in fostering through the initial inquiry phase and into the assessment stage, and get them to the point where they're approved as foster carers, where we then pass you guys over to our support services teams. We're also joined tonight by Kristy. Kristy, you can probably introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm a foster carer with Life Without Barriers. We've been caring for about 5 years now. We do respite and short-term placements, and which you'll hear more later about what that means. And yeah, I'm here to kind of give a carer's perspective on what it is, and hopefully be able to answer any questions you've got that are specific. All right. Oops, sorry, I'm trying to.
Chris. Good. Okay, so just before we start, just to let you know that we can't see you or hear you. You can see us and hear us, obviously. Please use the chat room to communicate with us, and we'll do our best to pick those up and try and answer your questions as we move through the presentation this evening. We'll also have opportunities for questions at the end as well, and we'll also send you a copy of tonight's presentation in an email after tonight, along with various other useful bits of information. Just for our own benefit, to let us know how our marketing's working and whether we're getting out to the places that we want to get out to. If you're able to just give us a bit of an indication via the chat room as to where you're joining us from this evening, perhaps the name of the suburb you live in or your postcode, that'd be really helpful information for us. So if you're able to do that, that'd be fantastic. Nailsworth, great. No Longer Downs, very nice. Thanks, guys. This is really helpful for us, so thank you for that. Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you. I'll just make a start. So, first thing I think we should do is do an acknowledgement of country. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and emerging leaders. I extend my appreciation to their culture, heritage, beliefs, and spiritual connection with this land. I acknowledge my gratitude that we share this land today, my sorrow for some of the costs of that sharing, and my hope and belief that we can move to a place of equity, justice, and partnership together. Okay, so in the course of this presentation this evening, we're going to be exploring the answers to some questions we regularly hear from people who are keen to find out if fostering is right for them. We're also going to have a little look at Life Without Barriers and give you a bit more information about the organisation that we work for. We'll talk to you about foster care. We'll talk about the children who require care within the foster care system. We'll talk about the process of becoming a foster carer, and we'll answer some common questions towards the end as well. So Life Without Barriers is it's a very large organisation. It's a national organisation, and there's an awful lot of advantage that comes with being part of a large organisation in terms of knowledge and resources and influence within the area that we work in. We currently support more than 4,500 children and young people, over 3,025 foster and kinship carers in our organisation at the moment, and that number is growing all the time, which is great. Through our disabilities team, we support over 5,287 people with disabilities, and we have over 1,800 people supported through the NDIS scheme. We supported last year over 4,858 refugees and asylum seekers, and 6,383 people were supported through home and community care. We also supported 1,740 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and we've partnered with 24 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organisations. So as you can see, we're a wide-reaching organisation. We're formed in New South Wales, in Newcastle. Headquarters remain in Newcastle in New South Wales, but we have a presence in every state in Australia. These are the values of which our organisation is built on. Relationships is kind of the basis of all that we do. So all the good work, all the good outcomes that we achieve is based on solid foundation of having good relationships. We're imaginative in our approach. We try and think about what we can do differently in order to create positive outcomes for children. It's not always right to do the same thing over and over again. Sometimes it's about what can we do to meet the needs of this young person. We're always respectful in what we do, try and consider everyone's points of view, try and find a good way forward when we're working with people. We like to be responsive, we like to try and act swiftly to try and meet the needs of people. And we like to think that we are courageous in terms of providing a voice for some of the most vulnerable children in our society and advocating on their behalf and representing their views. So that's what we try to do. What is foster care? For children who need time away from their family, foster care provides a safe and supportive home where they can heal and grow. It might be for a night, a week, a year, or until a child reaches adulthood. You might hear foster care talked about as foster care or out-of-home care or family-based care. With nearly 50,000 children unable to live safely at home in Australia, we're always looking for more foster carers. It would be great if that wasn't the situation, but unfortunately it is. So the fact that you guys have turned up tonight to listen to this is all credit to you. This is really important. So why do children come into care? So the most common reasons are, sadly, in relation to abuse, physical or sexual or emotional at the hands of generally of primary caregivers. Neglect is also a common reason. Parental mental health conditions sometimes makes it difficult for parents to look after children consistently and keep them safe consistently. If there's been a parental death, sometimes there's limited options in terms of people available to look after, family members able to look after young people. Or if a child has significant needs and those needs can't be met within the family home. Okay. So, who are children in care? So children in care are between 0 and 17 years of age. They should be able to and facilitated to stay connected to their culture and identity. It's really important that we provide young people with opportunities to do that. It's also really important where it's appropriate to enable young people to continue to have contact with their birth families. That's really, really important. Also, it's probably worth noting that young people who are looked after will have suffered some degree of trauma to a lesser or greater degree, depending on their circumstances. But the very fact that they're not living with birth parents would, constitute trauma to a certain degree. And so we need to bear that in mind when we're looking after young people and think about looking at how we're looking after them through a lens of, what trauma they may have experienced in the past. And there's a little picture of Kieran there, looking forward to his plans for the future. So, are there different types of foster care? Well, yes, there is. So there's respite care. So we do have some carers who just provide respite care. And when I say just, I'm not disparaging what they do. It's a really, really important role. And we're really glad that we've got people who perform respite care, and the people who provide long-term care for children will be the first ones to thank the people who are there to provide respite care. These guys, what they do is they provide a really valuable service, and they're actually contributing to stability of long-term placements through what they do. So they might look after children for a night or a weekend or a week in order to give primary carers a break, that kind of thing. So emergency or crisis care, that's about taking children in on a short-term basis with very limited notice, whilst arrangements are made by the Department for Child Protection and longer term plans are agreed. Short to medium term care, that's a similar situation to emergency care, only it's likely to be for more like, you know, a couple of months, 3 months, that kind of period, but it could become longer. So it's kind of slightly longer term whilst plans are being considered and the long-term future of children is being agreed. Kinship foster care is when a child is placed with a family member, and we can support that family member through Life Without Barriers. Long-term foster care is about when there's no plans for children to necessarily return to the parents' care, and children need a long-term stable placement, and that's when we will be looking at long-term foster care. We have 2 classifications of foster carers, both really valuable foster carers to have. So you could be classified as a general foster carer or a specialist foster carer. We do have children with some quite significant health considerations or challenging behaviours, or as a result of their early childhood experiences, and they may need additional support, and so you may be classified as a specialist carer if you're able to potentially meet the needs of those more complex children. So specialist carers need to be more flexible and readily available. They receive higher reimbursements, are provided with more regular and intensive support and coaching, receive additional training, and have access to Life Without Barriers therapeutic consultation services. So how are we doing, Kristy? Have we got any questions we need to think about yet, or are we doing okay?
So I'll just make sure everyone knows, because I'm not sure if I've said it since everyone's joined up, but if you use the chat box where you put where you're from, feel free to ask any questions in there as they come to mind. And then when we have a bit of a break in what Mike's talking about, I can either one of us will jump in and answer them, or we might hold them off until the end when we have our proper Q&A. So feel free to write them in as you think of them, and I'll keep track of them. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Kristy. I just want to introduce you guys to something called CARE and the CARE principles. These are things that these are principles that we interweave in a lot of our work within the organisation. So within the assessment phase and later on as you become approved foster carers, you'll find that a lot of the things you do with your support worker will be looked at in terms of these principles, which have been developed by Cornell University, and just help us think about how we work with children. So we try to make sure that all of our work with children is relationship based. So we're building trust. We're thinking about meaningful relationships to help foster emotional and social confidence. We want to be developmentally focused. So we're matching strategies for change with where the child is at developmentally to change but not overwhelm. So we're considering where the child is at in their developmental stages, and we're thinking about the strategies that we're putting in place to make sure that the young person can access those things. It's not too far advanced for them. We are trauma informed, so we're considering the impact of trauma and what the impact that that's had on the child's development, and we're modifying our expectations and interactions accordingly. We are family involved, so we're involving family and supporting cultural and community connections to help a child form their identity. That's really, really important. We're competency centred. We're helping children to develop the skills, knowledge and attitudes they need to negotiate everyday life. And we are ecologically orientated. So we're providing a caring and supportive environment with helpful models to show children how to care for themselves and others. So it's like positive role modelling. So what is the most important role of a foster carer? We need carers with attitudes and beliefs that we know are good for children, and a great way to demonstrate this is through the first-hand experiences of carers and care leavers. Now, I'm just going to let you know these videos don't always work, so we'll try it. If not, I'll let you know briefly what the videos are about, and we'll make sure they're on the email that come out to you guys after this, and you can have a good look at them. But I'll give it a go, but I'm not holding my breath. Oh, hang on. Can you guys see this? Kristy, can you see that?
I can see it. I can't hear anything though. The sound's not working, Mike.
All right. All right.
Okay. Yeah, Alicia said no sound. So if we can't get this working, I can share some links so you can watch these videos in your own time. And there's also the link I'll share has got lots of different videos of multiple different carers from different walks of life, dealing with different children. So that's really clever.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. We'll have to try and get that working for next time. But Stacey is a young person who's on the verge of leaving care, and she's talking about her experience and how she's still being supported by her foster carer even after the point where she's left her care. Chris and Sophie are talking about the sort of considerations that they went through on their journey to, you know, wanting to become foster carers and what that looked like for them and some of the questions they had for themselves in that process. And Gwen is talking about her experience of looking after a brother and sister, teenagers, and some of the challenges that she's experienced, as well as some of the amazing times that she's had with those guys. So definitely worth checking those videos out, guys, on the link that we send you after this. There
is one question, Mike, that I'll put in and address at the moment. We may talk about this a bit more later, but so Brad and Nikki have asked, are school-age children moved to the same school as the foster care family's children, or do they remain in their enrolled school? So it depends on the situation, whether it's an emergency placement, short-term or long-term. If they're only with you for a few months, then they'll stay in their enrolled school just so they've got stability. Often that's their one safe space. So if we can keep that consistency in their education, their friends, their teachers as much as possible, that's what we will aim for. If they become a long-term placement, then it is definitely looked at to whether it would be a better fit for them to be with the family's other children in one place for the practicalities of that, but also so that they feel included and a part of their new family. So that's definitely a case-by-case basis that's looked at, and you will be able to contribute to that discussion on what's actually going to be best for the child and for your family.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Kristy. Okay, so what do we look for in our carers? So we're looking for certain attributes. We need carers with attributes and beliefs that we know are good for children. Some of these may seem obvious, but they're not always easy to find. So we want people who are patient and understanding, are accepting of people, they're available, they've got commitment, they're flexible in their approach, they've got time to give, and they're committed to maintaining and strengthening family relationships. So we need people with time to spend with children. They want to be able to help children return safely home to their families. So sometimes what we're asked to do as foster carers is to support children to reunite with their families if it is deemed safe to do so and in their best interest to do so. It's called reunification. If you believe in children, all children will do well if they get the right help and care and support. If you want to share your home, you've got the resources with children who need help. I like trying to understand why children do things. So yeah, we're often, I mean, Kristy will tell you as a foster carer, you spend probably quite a considerable amount of time sort of thinking about the reasons behind certain behaviours and where that might come from and what may have informed that and what's the best way of responding to that. And, you know, that's all going back to that trauma-informed lens that we kind of talked about earlier. So the whatever we know about bringing up children, you know, if we've been fortunate enough to bring up our own children, some of that will be relevant and some of it won't be.
And that's supported through the training as you go through the process before you're finally approved, and then even after you're approved, there's lots of training available through Life Without Barriers that helps you to understand the why behind the way children are behaving or responding to stuff. So don't feel like, oh, I wouldn't have a clue where to start. Like, you get lots and lots of training and lots of support all the way through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you feel that you can help children manage tough feelings of missing their family, that's also a good attribute to have. If you believe it is important that children feel included in my family when they are in foster care, that would be great. So who can be a foster carer? It's likely that you can. Carers can be partnered or single, with or without children, from all backgrounds and cultures. Your ability to care for and nurture a child is what really matters. So you need to be over 25. You need to be well and healthy. You need to have a regular source of income or not be reliant on money that you receive for fostering to maintain your lifestyles. From any culture, faith, ethnicity, religion, sexuality or gender identity or expression. So we're basically open to anyone. It can be single or in a relationship. You need to be willing to undergo background checks. Your family home can have your own children, or you can be without children. You can rent or own, but you do need to have a spare room. And all your family need to be on board with the idea and supportive of it. So, how do you become a foster carer? Well, we'll send you some more information about that in the email that we send out to you guys following this presentation. But basically, what you'll do is you'll have a chat with someone in our national team. They'll take some information from you and talk you through the initial stages, and then they'll pass your details on to a member of my team, and they will ask you a few more questions, and they'll arrange to come out and visit you, and they'll share some more information about us as an organisation and the process of becoming foster carers and what's involved in the whole thing. Then if you decide that you want to progress into becoming a foster carer, and we feel that that's a good idea as well, then we'll invite you to carry on with the assessment process, and we'll start talking to you at that point about training courses that may be available. And we'll also, once all your background checks are done and your training courses are done, we'll then start the actual assessment process. So you'll be allocated an assessor at that point, and they will complete an assessment with you, and then that assessment will be sent to the DCP, or a section of the DCP called CARU, and they will evaluate the assessment that's been submitted to them, and they will approve you as foster carers. It's quite a long process. It depends how long it takes often to get checks back and that kind of thing. The actual assessment process itself, once the assessment starts to when it gets submitted to CARU, is no more than 5 months. Sometimes the bit that precedes that can be the bit that it's difficult to put a timescale on that. It just depends how long it takes to get things back, really. But yeah.
I always recommend that people start the process, because if you feel like you're not quite ready because your youngest child's a bit young, or you're starting a new job or something like that, I say start the process, because it could take 6 to 12 months before you're actually asked to take on a child. So and if you get to that point of being finished, assessed, approved, and you're still not quite ready, you can always say, I'm not ready, can you just put me on hold for a while? So don't feel like you have to wait until everything's perfect in your life before you can start the process.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. Thanks, Kristy. I mean, like a lot of things, there's never going to be a perfect time, and sometimes we have to kind of take a bit of a leap of faith, don't we? And but yeah, we can certainly slow things down, and we can, you can sort of step out the process at different stages, and so we can work around you to a certain degree in that space. Right, we'll have a look at some of our most frequently asked questions. This might answer some of the questions that you've already got in the back of your mind. I'm a single carer, can I foster? Well, yes, you can. We've got a lot of single carers who are foster carers. And our foster families come in all different shapes and sizes, so that's not a problem. We are a same-sex couple. Can we foster? Yeah, you certainly can. We're a very diverse fostering community here at LWB. Can I foster even though I don't have my own children? Yes, absolutely. We know that having experienced interaction, so basically, if you've got experience of interacting with children and we can evidence to the department that you have the required skills and knowledge and experience, then you can evidence that by different avenues. You don't need to necessarily evidence that by the fact that you've had your own children. So yeah, we can do that. About your home, do you need to have a spare room? Yes, you do. All looked after children have their own room unless they're sharing with a sibling sometimes. Do I have to own my own home to foster? No. However, you do need to demonstrate that your premises are safe and suitable to foster. You can be renting in public housing, paying off your home, or own your home outright. Can I have my own children and foster other children? Yes, you can. A lot of foster carers do that. That's fairly common. Oh, I've lost my cursor for a minute. Hang on a minute. Yeah, your family situation is considered when making decisions around the age and needs and levels of children you may foster. So we generally place children on a longer term basis who are younger than your youngest child, if that makes sense. Will all your family be involved in the assessment process? Yes, everyone in your household will be part of the assessment process. It is important to make sure everyone knows what fostering is and is on board with the decision to apply. It's a whole family deal, isn't it, Kristy?
Yeah, absolutely.
About the child in your care. How are children matched to foster carers? Kristy, you can probably tell us about this.
Again, it's really very case by case. You will be assigned a support worker called a child and family practitioner from Life Without Barriers, and they will know you and your family and what you're capable of, what your skills are, what your interests are. And so then when they get a request from DCP, they will have a look at all their carers and decide who they think is appropriate or a good match. And then they'll talk to you and you can discuss it with your partner if you have one, or a trusted friend, or just think through it yourself and decide whether or not that child is a good match for you. Sometimes you don't get very much information because DCP doesn't even have very much information, just that this child's not safe. They know a general age and they just need somewhere for them to be for the night or the week or whatever. But yeah, they try to give as much information as they possibly can so that you can decide whether it will fit in your family situation, which of course changes from time to time, depending on your children or your work or your health. So yeah, don't feel like you're going to suddenly have a child dumped on your doorstep with no say. You can always say no. it will be discussed with you. Yeah, I hope that gives enough information to that.
Yeah, thanks, Kristy. That's great. I think the only other thing worth mentioning there is that sort of timescales. I mean, sometimes we have very planned placements made where there's lots of time to have conversations and plan introductory visits, and we know an awful lot about the children that are coming in, and other times it's done in a lot quicker way and we don't have as much information as we would like, and we don't have as much time to plan things as we would like. So sometimes we have to be quite responsive to situations that we're facing. Can I choose the age and gender of a child? Our assessors work with you to recommend the best fit. So we're considering your skills, preferences and household dynamics regarding the age, gender and needs of children you are approved to care for. It's important to keep in mind that having very specific preferences regarding age and gender can make it more difficult to make a good match. Yeah, so what I would say on that is that your assessors will talk to you around your preferences, and they will also talk about what they think you could perhaps manage. I think having as wider sort of approval range is a really good position to be in, and then you've got more options when people are talking to you about potential matches further down the line. That's a conversation you can have with your assessors. About the child or children in care. Do children in care have ongoing relationships with their family? In most cases they do. We know that maintaining connection with family in whatever way possible is part of ensuring good long-term outcomes for children in care. Our care team will help you find the best ways to support family relationships and ensure it is safe for all. So yeah, it's really important to support young people in maintaining relationships with birth family. What happens if the placement isn't working out? Stability is key for children in order to do well and thrive. It is not in the child's best interest to be moved continuously, so we need resilient carers who are able to work with our care team to push through the harder days. This said, if ending a placement has to happen, we'll always be there to make sure goodbyes are done well. How long does the assessment process take? Yeah, I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but assessment is an important step in making sure environments we provide for children are safe and nurturing, and that applicants are ready to take on the role of a carer. The process usually takes around 5 to 6 months from application, so that's the point at which you go into the actual assessment process, but can differ depending on your circumstances. It's important to remember that fostering is all about time, and if you ever need to take a break from the process and revisit it later, that's okay too. About the support that you'll get if you become a foster carer with Life Without Barriers. What support will I receive as a carer? It can be difficult to comprehend the experiences children bring with them, so it's important that carers feel supported and confident in their role, which was something that Kristy touched on earlier. So we have continuous and ongoing learning and development. There's a whole multitude of training available to carers, and there's an expectation that approved carers access training on a regular basis. It's part of your annual review process as well. It just better equips you to meet the needs of children in your care. We have a clinical team made up of psychologists, and they're available as well to help explore behaviours, how children are doing, look at things in different ways, consider why things are happening in certain ways, and basically provide you guys with support. We have a 24/7 on-call support system in place. We have respite where possible. We have obviously financial support. You do get reimbursement for providing foster care. And we have a massive network of carers. I think some of the best support that foster carers get is from fellow foster carers who know what it's like firsthand. I don't know what that little fiery guy is, but we'll leave him there. Social events, there we go. We have lots of social events, don't we? So that's always good. I know I saw Kristy at some big wedgie thing a few months ago. That was good fun.
I didn't go on the wiki, only the kids did.
Oh, okay. We also encourage carers to form supportive peer relationships through peer networks and approaches such as the Mockingbird family. Now, Mockingbird is a new approach to fostering that we're just been rolling out in the last few months. Kristy's been involved in that actually. So Kristy, if you maybe perhaps just say a few words about Mockingbird. Sorry, I put you on the spot here. I'm gonna.
No, that's all right. Yep, sure. So yeah, my role is the hub home provider, which you can see on the screen there in the center is the hub home. So the idea is that there's a constellation or a group of foster care homes that kind of surround us as the hub home provider. And our role is to provide peer support to those other carers, and we provide respite to their children. We organise social gatherings, trainings that are specific to our group. And yeah, whatever support those families need, we can make that happen for our group because we know them so well. And we have a liaison officer who is a full-time employee of Life Without Barriers. And so they can kind of help support if the carer comes to me and wants support, but I'm not sure about what's available or what trainings we could put in place or what practical supports we could put in place beyond what my capacity is, then I can go to the liaison officer and they can plug us into what else that carer might need. Yeah, so we're still learning because it is new in South Australia. So we're still excitedly learning all the ways that we can actually support carers better through this new program.
Yeah, it's a really exciting new way of us looking at foster care in South Australia, and it's really interesting. So if that's something you guys want to learn a bit more about, please ask your assessor about that. Okay, so where from here? So our website's a good place to start. Lots more information on there. If you want to get the ball rolling in terms of becoming a foster carer, phone our national team on that number there, and it'll also be in the email. So it's 1300 592 227. We're going to leave you some fact sheets in the email that comes out after this. If this is the end of your inquiry, then just thank you for your time. It means an awful lot to us that you've even took the time to come and listen to us talk to you about fostering. If it's not right for you, but you think this might be right for a member of your family or a friend, then please pass on our details to those guys. Would be great to hear from them.
I'll add that I've put a link in the chat box to a call me back form. Okay. So that's the one with the 17 at the end of the link, if everybody can see that. If you copy and paste that into your browser, you'll be able to just fill out a very simple form, and then someone will call you, which is usually pretty prompt. And in my experience, they're lovely to talk to. And then also just above that is the link to the foster carer stories. And there's, I think there's about 12 different stories, videos of people with their experiences, and we'll give you a really good overview of the different aspects of the different types of care. And there's also a few more questions that have come in.
I was just looking at this one around how long the process takes. I feel like we may have answered that one, Melissa, but it's basically the actual assessment period will take no longer than 5 months from beginning to end. There is some time before that where we're doing background checks and collecting some basic information, and you're completing some training courses that are required. That may take 3 or 4 months, something like that. And then once we submit the assessment to the department, there's a period of time where we're waiting for those guys to ratify the assessment and approve you as a foster carer. So it's difficult to give an exact figure, but it's it'll be somewhere between 7 and 10 months, something like that. Oh, question for you there, Kristy.
So what made you become a foster carer, and what's been your favorite thing or moment as a foster carer? I think we first started thinking about it a long time ago, just because my husband and I are both teachers, and both love kids and felt like we had knowledge and experience with child development. And through our teaching careers, we had seen children with trauma and other, life difficulties, and really saw the need to support them and get alongside them. So we thought this was a way for us to give back, to support kids that don't have the amazing opportunities that our own children have. And I think the favorite thing or moment as a foster carer, that's hard. There's so many little things. The joy on their face, when they come at first, they're very timid, unsure, because it's a whole new house. Doesn't matter how welcoming you are or how comfortable you make it, it's different to what they have experienced. So it's scary. So when you're able to make them feel comfortable enough that you just see the smile start to spread on their face, or they'll come to you to share a toy or to ask for help, and you just see that, they're starting to trust me, they're starting to feel safe, they're starting to feel joy again. And that's so rewarding, to know that you have enabled that in a child, because every child deserves to feel safe and to feel joy. So to actually be able to make that change in a child's life in those little things, it really is very rewarding.
Thanks, Kristy. I'll just try and speak a little bit to Mariam's question. What is the difference between LWB and Aboriginal organisations offering fostering of Aboriginal children by a potential non-Aboriginal foster carer? Is there a preferred pathway? An Aboriginal organisation and Life Without Barriers both would be working in similar ways in terms of supporting foster carers in looking after children in their care. In terms of the fostering of Aboriginal children by potentially non-Aboriginal foster carers, I think what we would always be very mindful of child placement principles in relation to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children. So I think the wherever possible, Aboriginal children should be placed with Aboriginal carers. That would be an overriding principle in that area. And where that can't be achieved, we'll be looking for carers who have got the required knowledge, skills and experience to meet that young person's needs. So I hope that answers your question, Mariam. I think there's another question for you there, Kristy, in relation to spare rooms. I've got 2 spare bedrooms because my kids have grown up and left home. Could I request siblings so they can stay together?
Yes, if it is at all possible for siblings to stay together, that is definitely an aim of Life Without Barriers, because that provides security for children. It allows them to grow up with their sibling. That's really important, if at all possible. Sometimes their trauma experiences together actually make it better for them to live separately, but have a lot of access and visits with each other. But in most cases, it's the aim is to keep siblings in the same household. If you've got the room to take a sibling group, that is amazing. And the next one, I don't have experience with toddlers or young kids. Are there teenagers who need foster carers as well? I think I'd be better with them. That would be absolutely amazing. There are lots of teenagers that desperately need a safe home, that need mentoring, that need parenting, that need safety. That need to know that they are loved and wanted, because the teenage years are hard enough for any child, let alone a child that has had trauma and feels rejected and alone in the world. And teenagers are really tricky to place. Absolutely consider that if that's what you think you'd be better at, for sure. My youngest child is 5. Would I be better with a younger or older foster child? Generally, younger than your youngest is better. I think the rule of thumb is a couple of years younger than your youngest. But again, that would be taken as a case-by-case basis, and your CFP would know you and your situation best, and they would know your children and how that would work.
Yeah, and I think if we're considering respite, you know, there may be times when we would place older children on a shorter term basis, but certainly if we're looking at longer term, we'd be looking probably younger than your youngest.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Some other questions here from Brad and Nikki
Okay.
in the Q&A. So, are there usually lots of home modifications needed to foster carers' homes in order to foster a child? I would say not. Mike, what
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one to answer without seeing your property, but most cases not. I mean, we do have some carers who live on rural properties, on farms and things like that, and they've got dams and they've got, you know, streams running through the property and that kind of thing, and we have to give consideration to, you know, risk to certain age children in relation to those kind of things. But generally, you know, generally speaking, not huge amounts of modifications to be done, but we'll explore that early on, you know, so that you can make decisions around whether that's going to be preventative or not.
Yeah. And so with your mum, oh, sorry, I'll read it out so everybody knows. My mum sometimes babysits my own children and also spends a lot of time with our family during the week. Will she be able to look after our foster child also, or will we need to book respite? So in most cases, this that would be deemed a normal family setup. So that's the kind of thing that we encourage, so that the foster child can have the benefit of having a grandparent just the same as your own biological children. She would need to have any adult that's regularly in your home or that will look after your children will need to have the police checks and working with children checks just the same as you. Yeah, and if she wants to become an official foster carer, respite carer, then she could go through that process. But absolutely, she can just be like a grandparent, just like to your own children, as long as she has those checks.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Kristy. Just going back to Mariam, yes, we do have support for Aboriginal children in placements with LWB, and we also have Aboriginal members of staff in our support team as well. So
question about a dog too. Hang on, I'll find it. I have a big but friendly dog. Is that okay? Pets is something that will be discussed during the assessment process, and it's very much a matter of supervision, just making sure that the dog can safely get away from the children if the children are pestering it, because sometimes these kids can be quite intense. So it's important to be able to safely separate the children from the dog. But we also acknowledge that dogs, any pets, can be very therapeutic for children. So it's definitely something that can be discussed. It's just something to be aware of, the potential dangers.
That's great, thank you. Just noticed that we've got some people on tonight from Mount Gambier, from the Balmira and Ashton areas, and it's great to have you guys. We've got quite a thriving fostering community down in the Mount Gambier area, so it's really good to see you guys with us today, and I hope you are interested and want to go forward with your fostering.
Definitely a shortage of carers in some of those country regional areas, like in the Riverland. I'm not sure where Ashton is, but yeah, it's a huge need in those outlying areas. So we encourage you to continue looking into this and encourage anyone you know that you think might be interested to look us up as well.
So Alicia is asking about visiting her family in Tasmania, and would a foster child be able to go with you? Quite possibly. I think you know, it's quite often foster children go on holiday with their foster families. It's a conversation that we'd have to have with the DCP, but generally speaking, that the arrangements can be put in place for that to happen quite easily. It's quite a regular thing, isn't it, Kristy?
Yeah, definitely. And again, that's one of those fantastic life experiences that these children have often missed out on. So to be able to include them in those kind of things is actually really valuable for them. Yeah, occasionally DCP will say, no, we need them to stay in the state close by. They might have very regular access with their families. But generally speaking, yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity for them.
Great. Going back to Mariam on her point, just to let you know, LWB are also the first organisation to partner with Snake Re Foster Care to work towards having Aboriginal organisations placing Aboriginal children in the future. So that's something that we're working towards achieving.
I think we touched on this one earlier. Someone's asked again, can the foster child go to the same school as my children to make it manageable? Again, this depends on whether it's a short-term placement or long-term. If the child is with you and it's going to be a long-term placement, then obviously it will be negotiated to make it a viable option for them to be able to stay living with you. If it's not manageable for you to be able to get them to school for the next 12 years in a different location, then yeah, they're not going to end the placement over that. But if they're only with you short term and while they're exploring kinship or reunification back to their biological family, then DCP and Life Without Barriers will help make it manageable so that the child can have that stability until they're in a permanent position.
That's great. And someone's asked, do you think being a teacher helps when you're a foster carer?
Yeah, it definitely can. I think teachers, someone with a medical background, health, therapy, those kind of things, they just have an understanding of child development and different people skills that just really do support their understanding of children. Having said that, there's plenty of people that are in, construction or, completely separate to human jobs. Sorry, that's not the right way to say it, but that can just be amazing carers as well. I know a single man who used to be a truck driver and he hurt his back, so he couldn't drive trucks anymore. And he has fostered numerous teenagers over the years and really tricky kids. And he's just done an incredible job. So yeah, anyone can make a brilliant foster carer.
Chloe and AJ are asking, they've got 5 kids between 1 and 6 years of their own. Do you think we would be declined due to the age of our kids? No, I don't think so. I think we could certainly, potentially, you guys could certainly provide a really good placement for a child. We'll obviously look at your circumstances as part of the assessment process. It may be that, you start off being approved to provide respite care, for instance, with a view to being approved, changing your approval in a year or two's time. Or you could perhaps be approved to provide some emergency short-term care. But we'd have a talk to you about that in the inquiry phase and into the assessment phase. So certainly worth exploring a bit more, I think.
Yeah. And your parenting philosophies, Chloe and AJ, will be very, very valued in the foster care.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, there's another question in the Q&A. Out of all the various types of foster care, where do you see the most need to the least?
Well, that's a difficult one because basically, and
I would say it's the need.
Say that again, Kristy.
I would say the need is everywhere, like every part of foster care.
Is.
There's not
And
enough.
if you're providing foster care for a child, you're providing, a life-changing thing for that young person, aren't you? So how do you say that that's less valuable than what the care that someone else is providing to another child? you know, especially, you know, people that can provide care for the more children with the more complex needs. I guess, you know, we're always looking for those guys, but having said that, we need foster carers across the board. So it's a difficult one to rank in any kind of order of need, really.
There's one more that we missed earlier on. I'm just over 60. Is that too old to be a foster carer?
No, I'm sure you've got a lot to offer. So give us a call and we'll have a chat about it. We've got plenty of carers over the age of 60. So no, as long as you're willing and able, then yeah, we'll have a chat. Okay. Well, if we haven't got any more questions, I think we've probably come towards the end of our presentation this evening. I'd like to thank you all for your time. It's been great to have you all here. And like I said earlier, if whatever you choose to do from now, just the fact that you've taken the time this evening to learn a bit more about fostering is really, really great. And we really appreciate your time. If we can encourage you to fill out the form that's been sent to you, that'd be fantastic. There's the link there. Yeah, so thank you. Take care, everyone.